Dr. Shantala Hegde. She is the associate professor and consultant neuropsychologist. Her specialization is neuropsychology and neurorehabilitation services. She's from the Department of Clinical Psychology, faculty in charge of Music Cognition Laboratory from the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences. Over to you, Dr. Shantala. We are eager to hear from you, your insights. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vijayalakshmi Madam, Rupa, and all the other distinguished speakers for the day. It's really a wonderful concept that has been taken up for today's conference. And I'm going to put forth a case for art education, and more so from the neuroscientific perspective. So as the stage has been set by both Vijayalakshmi Madam and Rupa Madam, that art education for some reason or for many reasons are being considered as more an extracurricular activity than a core curriculum. In the recent times with this pandemic happening, especially in an institute like NIMHANS, we have been actually facing a lot of issues related to mental health following COVID and the whole pandemic. And the crux of the whole issue that is happening, not just the physical ailment, but the issue that has taken forefront in such a pandemic is also mental health. So when we talk about mental health or the protective attributes, the key component is resilience, how well we are able to face with any adverse situations, positive mental health, to be able to think, to be able to understand, have hope and faith, and be able to overcome any challenging situation. Emotion regulation, so to be able to handle our own emotions, understand our own emotions, introspect, able to empathize with others, compassion, being mindful. Many a times now we are training people to be mindful during this current situation. And also existential questions are mostly coming up. So ultimately we're also talking about spiritual quotient, not just intellectual quotient, not just emotional quotient. So if you look at goals of like education, what it should be, we all kind of come in one page. We do, reiterate the fact that there should be holistic development, which takes care of physical, social, cognitive, emotional, moral, academic, and spiritual development. If you go back to our traditional texts or traditional system, as Rupa mentioned, our Guru Shishya Parampara, the whole crux was actually to do with holistic development. It was a formal system of education. Unfortunately, Britishers did want to break our system down to be able to control us. We do know history. We don't, I do not have to repeat that again. But if you look at the Guru Shishya Parampara vis-a-vis the current Western psychological concepts, which many educationalists follow, is the multiple intelligence theory or multiple aptitudes, how Howard Gardner himself puts it across. If you look at that, in his recent theories, he has also added the component of moral and existential component. So ultimately, what we are talking about as psychologists or neuropsychologists is not just an IQ or a quotient that we say somebody has less of it or somebody has more of it, but we are actually talking about multiple components of which there could be of different quantity or quantity in a given individual, which helps the individual to adapt to the environment. So ultimately, any education system should help an individual or a society at large to be able to be in tune with nature, when we say be in tune with nature, it also means how well are we going to adapt to any adverse situation that might come in front of us. Having said this, I will build a case mainly from music. I do agree that most of the studies are being done with other art forms, but pardon me, I'm going to take up only music with the 10-minute time that I have. What do we understand in the field of cognitive neuroscience or brain and neuroscience is that music is ubiquitous, it's universal across culture, but it is beyond just mere entertainment. That's kind of established now. Being the main fact is that it is biologically based. You have enough evidence from multiple pedagogies, multiple knowledge systems, that there is music, which there are evidence, anthropological evidence, psychological evidence, cognitive evidence that says that music is a biological phenomenon and not just existing for mere entertainment. And the crux is that music as a cognitive system itself, as a special cognitive phenomenon, if you could call it, engages so many neural areas, that means brain areas, which are unique to music, but also share it with other cognitive processes, like language, for example, which is so very interesting because it means that music has a role to play in our um, evolutionary adaptive mechanism. It's a tremendously demanding task. So for a neuroscientist or a neuropsychologist, music in the last 20, 30 years has become the food to understand the functioning of the human brain itself. And human brain is so important whenever we talk about learning, whenever we talk about education, because that's the system that's crucial for any new learning to happen. And music, what it does is actually engages almost all other cognitive processes that we talk about. It could be from perception, attention, information processing, action, planning, learning and memory, social cognition, emotion recognition, and so on and so forth. So ultimately, there are innumerable studies that have shown that music, or engaging in music actively or passively, does bring about functional and structural change in the human brain, which is a veritable nature or a unique nature of the human brain that we call as neural plasticity, which means the environment has a ability to impact our structure and function of the human brain, which actually the education does. Anything new that we learn changes the human brain. Neural plasticity occurs even during the developmental trajectory. So we see kids learning new things. We know that there are new neural map that is occurring, and new learning also equates to showing us an evidence of neural plasticity. On your right hand side of the screen, I've just put a picture, mainly highlighting the fact that music, if you look at different components of music, so when a neuroscientist looks at music, he or she is also looking at components of music. You call it as pitch, rhythm, tempo, lyrics, emotion, the melody, various components are represented in different areas of the brain, including motor pathways and motor functioning. So it is one of those powerful process that engages the whole brain at one go. So music today, therefore, is considered as a powerful method to be used in neurorehabilitation or neuropsychological rehabilitation, as well as in education. So it's in a way considered as an honest signal of emotional, cognitive, and social fitness. Now, if you go back to this multiple intelligences theory or look at the various intelligences or aptitudes, in fact, music and rhythmic ability actually activates all other system as well. It could be logical thinking, mathematical, being with nature, being inspired by nature, bodily kinesthetic movement, fine motor activity that gets engaged while you're learning a new instrument, or singing. You're talking about breathing, so your physiology cannot be kept separate, or interpersonal interaction when you're singing alone versus singing in a symphony or a group or in a kacheri, and visual modality. You visualize the musical scores or swaras or the jatis and things like that. So basically it activates almost all important neural networks of the brain, and more importantly, the reward system. So music also kind of engages kids in any form of education. You want to teach them English, you want to teach them other Sanskrit, or you want to teach them different languages or different concepts. What we know now today is teaching them it through music actually empowers the memory engrams that happens. So you are, even in neurodegenerative conditions like dementia, you might actually lose various things that you have learned later in stage, but you'll never forget your favorite songs or rhymes or some songs that you have learned in your childhood, because musical memory engages a different pathway, and it can also help in recollection of other memories. So it's kind of interconnected. So it's like one activates the various other engrams. So in that way, music education can actually intersperse with various other education also, including maths or science or whatever that it can be. So a case for art education, that's my take home message for today. Music and art, as I said, is engaging. The thing is that the core structural and functional changes that it brings about in the neural network and human brain. There was at some point Mozart effect that was very famous. Everybody, asked about this question. But today we know it need not be Mozart, but it can be any music, musical training, systematic training. So there is a lot of other things that gets into place. Recently, when I met Pandit Hariprasad Charasi, he also reiterated, Shantala, that the fact that a child has to sit and practice, that itself brings about a kind of system or routine, which has an impact on other functions, which we as psychologists would all know, or other education teachers and other experts would know. The other important thing is education of art can be a prophylaxis. Today in COVID pandemic or any other conditions, what we see is that prophylaxis, a person who has good cognitive reserve, we mean that there are more than one pathways that are strengthened in the human brain, uh, are actually less likely to get into neurodegenerative conditions. So, but note of caution is that musicians are not immune, because that means that you have to think of holistic training again. So, samatvam yoga uchyate. So, just music, I'm not propagating that. It has to be a holistic training that is very important. And importantly, individual and society at large, it helps in connecting. So collective consciousness, as we say, as Swami Vivekananda said, the conscious of India is spiritual consciousness. And it underscore, of course, I would underscore the need for research in Indian classical system, which our music cognition lab, we have been trying to do, look at not just clinical population, but also in healthy individuals, children who are learning music, and children with dyslexia, and so on and so forth. So I thank you for this 10-minute. Thanks from my entire team who are working on various projects, trying to understand Indian classical music and the brain basis. And also in 2021, NIMHANS will host a conference. All of you are most welcome to be part of it. And I'll send the flyer soon through the organizers. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shantala. Extremely enriching. And I would like to just add upon, you're completely right in saying it builds resilience, mindfulness. It's all over overall development of spiritual, emotional, and entire the cognitive neurosciences. So we had Mr. Manjul Bhargava. He is the Nobel Prize winner for math, and I had a brief interaction with him last year. And because he's also a part of this new education policy which the government has come up with. And when I asked him about, so how do you, you must be hardly what, 35, 36, and how did you do this? And he said, I don't know how many people know this, but I'm an avid Mridangam player. And what has helped me today is all my mathematical equations or whatever I have researched on and discovered is primarily just after a session of Mridangam. So we have a lot of examples around us who are proof that what you're saying is true. Now all we need to do is bring in all educationists together, the think tanks together, put up a document and say this really helps, and we better start blended learning for our children right from KG to 12th, because by the time they come to the higher education systems, their minds are so concretized and they are so much into the rat race that it's extremely difficult to bring back the flexi mindset in them. So yes, school is what we need to target. Thank you very much again.